It might sound like a dumb question, but like if a student really wanted to get into climate change and work on climate change, would like geography be a good degree for that?
I think so. I think climate change comes up so much in geography. We get a lot of lectures about it. We get a lot of different angles about it as well. So we do sort of policy and mitigation strategies and how people can help, stop the climate crisis, but then also sort of the science of it and behind how that all works.
Hello everyone, welcome to Cambridge from the Inside. Today we have a new guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Lucy and I'm a second year geographer.
Nice. So today we're going to be talking about studying geography at Cambridge. We're going to go through everything about course content, modules, what the structure of the course is like, and how Lucy's been finding it. So firstly, we have like a lot of prospective students who watch the podcast, and they're trying to choose what university, what degrees they want to study. And can you explain to us like what is geography? And what kind of like things do geography students learn about when they're studying at Cambridge?
Yeah, so geography, we actually have a module in first year that is actually about sort of the history of geography and sort of what geography actually is. So even we are sort of still having to study what geography is because it's very much sort of everything. You do a little bit of, obviously you've got the human side, the physical side. So you're doing bits of science, bits of humanities, sort of culture, society, environment, all that kind of stuff. So it's genuinely a little bit of everything, which I absolutely love.
Nice. So for like prospective students, and when they're trying to work out what degrees they want to study, like what kind of things, if a student's curious about, will make them find geography an interesting degree to study?
Yeah, I think because of that, you have to be interested in lots of different things, especially, you are doing a bit of human and physical, so you have to like both to a certain degree. So you definitely have to be curious about sort of the physical world and how that works and how that all operates, and then also human and society and that kind of thing. So I think that, yeah, like you said, you've got to be a very curious person, and open to sort of new things, because you come to Cambridge and you learn bits of geography that I didn't even know were geography. So you've got to be open to trying lots of different things, because there's lots of different things within geography, you've got to learn in different ways. So yeah, it's a little bit of everything, like I said, but it's a really good thing, and it keeps it nice and interesting.
Nice. So would you be able to give like a brief overview of like the history of geography, like just to put you on the spot, but
Oh my gosh.
or at least like kind of what it is today compared, because I know, at least from my perspective, like didn't study geography, I kind of think of it as one of the two humanities that you normally study in school between geography and history.
Yeah.
But I imagine that's not quite what it is at university, I guess.
Yeah, so I would say at university, at least here at Cambridge, it's a lot more kind of, I always say that it's half for science, half for humanity.
Okay.
I like to say that just because I'm quite a science girl as well, so I quite like the both sides of it. So I think that where geography is at today and at Cambridge is very much, you still find that divide between the human and the physical. And, you can choose between those two. But I think geography these days is becoming a lot more sort of the bit in the middle, which is kind of what we study, and I've sort of forgotten some of it from first year, but basically the bit in the middle is, very much how do humans relate to the environment? How do we affect the environment? How does the environment affect us? So it's very much sort of, rather than two separate entities, I suppose, there is a merge in the middle, which is what you study in first year, which is quite interesting.
Nice. So say like, I don't know, there's a year 12 student and they're trying to work out what degree to study, and they're really interested in geography and history and potentially, I know, something like HSPS.
Yeah.
What kind of things would like if would make geography like makes geography that's different to like, I guess, history or like HSPS?
Yeah, I think geography is closer to HSPS. Yeah, it's definitely got elements of history within it.
Okay.
But I think from the history perspective, geography is a lot less involved within that whole world history. So the history that we do within geography is very much how geography came about and how history can tell us about sort of political relations in the future and to the present day. So that's, I'd say, where history comes into geography, but that's probably where it ends with history. So, you know, history would be a lot more, well, I don't know about their degree, but, you know, that geography, there's a lot of other aspects of that, whereas history is just that little bit. So I think HSPS would probably be a closer link with geography. I think, you know, I actually have friends that study HSPS and we have discussions about some of those topics that do come up in similar ways. So I think if you're looking at that HSPS stuff and you're really interested in that, I think they'd go into a lot more detail about sort of policy, international relations, all that kind of thing, you know, politics. So I think that's a closer look at it within HSPS, whereas geography sort of, it does look into that, but I would say, especially in first year, it's less detailed about those sorts of things. So you're looking at it and then you're sort of also looking at lots of other things. So I think that's sort of the good thing about geography, because you're looking at lots of things, but also then you don't go into as much detail. So I think if you're really interested in those details, then that's where you'd go into HSPS, whereas geography, bit of everything.
Interesting. So, am I right in thinking that, so like HSPS, and for anyone who doesn't know what HSPS is, it's Human, Social, Political Sciences, a degree that we offer at Cambridge. So is it the kind of methodology and like approach to topics that's quite similar in geography and quite similar in HSPS, but the actual course content and what modules you'll do are like categorically different in geography and HSPS. So that if you're a student and you're trying to choose between the two, the biggest difference will be the course content rather than how you approach certain ideas.
Probably, yeah. I would say there's definitely sort of an overlap between the two.
Yeah.
But there is only a small overlap, I would say. So geography goes on to do lots of other different things, whereas you'd focus much more in detail on that bit. Yeah. So there is overlap, but still differences.
Yeah, because I imagine there's overlap in the human geography side, but not the physical geography side.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I don't think HSPS do any of that physical geography, so you've got to be sort of interested in that as well for the geography.
Nice. Yeah. And if anyone who doesn't know, including myself, like, can you explain like what human geography and physical geography is?
Yeah, so human geography would be very much about sort of people, relations, politics, geopolitics, anything that is to do with society, culture and people. Whereas physical geography is everything to do with the natural world, the environment, and, you know, sort of global processes that are not human. So examples of physical geography would be sort of looking at the atmosphere, looking at the oceans, looking at you know, glaciers and the cryosphere and that kind of thing. Whereas human geography, you know, within first year we do sort of cultural geography, we do sort of a little bit of historical geography, how people have shaped, you know, the past and the history of the past and how that's going on into the future. So that's the difference between the two. But like I said, we do kind of also study sort of the bit in the middle of physical and human. So yeah.
Yeah. So are there like instances where like things that are in the physical geography realm affect like people, the societies?
Yeah. So there are things that we study and sort of theories that we study about how there is a relationship both ways. So humans can obviously affect the environment. We know climate change, that kind of thing. And then the environment can also affect people. So there is, it gets a bit more complex, but that's kind of, there are relationships between the two. Yeah.
This might sound like a dumb question, but like if a student really wanted to get into climate change and work on climate change, would like geography be a good degree for that?
I think so. I think climate change comes up so much in geography. You know, we get a lot of lectures about it. We get a lot of different angles about it as well. So we do sort of policy and mitigation strategies and how people can help, stop the climate crisis, but then also sort of the science of it and behind how that all works. So I think definitely climate change comes up a lot, and I know a lot of people doing my course want to, work in that kind of sphere and help solve the climate crisis. Yeah.
Nice. Can you explain like what kind of things you might learn about in the geography course that are related to the climate crisis?
Yeah, so like I said, we do policy, so we do kind of how government and organisations can work to solve climate change issues. We do sort of maybe like development projects where, development projects are seeking to address climate change issues that affect maybe small communities. We also do, in first year, you do like an atmospheres module where basically you look at exactly, what is climate change, greenhouse effect, all that kind of thing. So you go into a bit more detail about the science of it. So there are, like I said, human and physical aspects to that, yeah.
That's really cool, because I think, me being a graduate and I'm, like all of my friends who are graduates, so a lot of people wanting to get into climate change. But it's, I think, at least for me, I don't know many geographers personally, so a lot of people trying to get into climate change but don't really have any direct experience in climate change with their degrees. But geography sounds like you'd actually study a lot about climate change, which is really cool.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's, like I said, a lot of lectures where we talk about climate change, and sometimes you can sort of end the lecture and we go sort of, oh, it's sort of inevitable and we're all going to die. And, but actually, we do study the solutions to that. Yeah. So I think, there is more sciencey, sort of engineering-y type things you could go into climate change. But I think geography is a good foundation for that climate change stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like it, especially for people who are thinking of policies.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. So going back to the geography course at Cambridge, could you explain what like the course structure is like, and like is there much flexibility in like module choice?
Yeah, so in first year, you have a very sort of distinct split between human and physical. Okay. So that's like paper 1 and paper 2, and then within that you have modules. So I think it's 7 papers for the human, and then 6 papers for the physical. So overall, that's quite a lot of modules to be sort of playing around with. But that's very much, you kind of pretty much a half and half split between human and physical. And that's not optional. So you don't get a choice in first year. But because there's such a wide range of modules, it's actually quite, there is something for everyone. And even if, you're not the biggest fan of one, there's going to be another 10 that you're really going to like. So that's first year.
And does everyone do all of those modules in first year?
Yes. Yeah, everyone does all of those. You don't get a choice. You just go in and do those. So that's, you obviously meet everyone from the course through that first year, which is quite nice. And then in second year, so what I'm doing now, you get much wider choice. Yeah. So we do one paper that you have to take, which is actually about climate change. It's about sort of global change, it's called. And then the rest of the modules, so you take 4 overall, so you get 3 that are optional. And that can be, there's a choice from physical and human. So right now I'm doing 2 physical, 1 human paper, and then that 1 climate change paper. So you can really, but if you wanted to do just human, then in second year you could do that just human, or you could take all the physical papers. Nice. So that's more of a choice.
Oh, so in the first year, the 13 modules don't necessarily lead to 13 exams?
No, so you have 2 exams.
Okay.
Yeah, not 13, just 2, don't worry. So you have 2 exams, and then basically you get a range of questions
I see.
from that, let's say, human paper, and you choose the ones that you're most interested in.
That sounds much more manageable.
Yeah, yeah, because then you could basically, you don't have to answer a question on a paper that you're not a biggest fan of. Yeah,
nice, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And like, which modules have you chosen then for your second year?
Yeah, so this year, like I said, I've got that non-optional paper, which is the living with global change, it's called. So that's like climate change, but it also kind of does physical and human aspects of climate change.
Oh, nice. That's really cool.
Which is actually a lot of people's favourite module. It's really good. So I've got that one, and then I've got paleoclimatology, which is basically, it's a physical paper, and it's looking at how we find out about climate in the past. So it's taking sort of sediment cores and other sort of bits of data and looking at how we can reconstruct what the climate looked like in the past, and that'll then help us in the future. So that's quite a technical sort of physical paper. And then I'm taking biogeography, which is all about sort of carbon relations, it's plants, it's ecology, it's tree growth and tree rings and that kind of thing. So again, quite a physical paper, sort of focuses a lot on sort of plants and trees and that kind of thing. And then I'm taking, my final paper is development and decolonization, which is, I really love this paper. It's all about sort of development aid and NGOs and policies and, sort of north-south relations, what that's looked like in the past and how we can seek to decolonize in the future.
Wow, that's really cool. There's such a broad range.
Yeah, even though I'm not doing those 13 modules, it's still a very broad range, which I really, really like.
That's really cool. To go through, I'm quite curious to go through each of them. So what was the first one, the name again?
The living with global change.
No, yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, not the second one.
Second one, paleoclimatology,
Yeah, so how far back into the past would you go?
Oh, very good question. So right now I'm doing my coursework on like the Holocene, which is the last sort of basically 12,000 years. So from present to last 12,000 years. But this covers the entirety of the Quaternary, which is, I should know that. I actually don't know that, but it's a very long time. It's thousands and thousands of years in the past.
Interesting.
And obviously as we go further back in time, the evidence gets a little bit more muddy and, a bit more, we can't interpret it as well. But it's really cool to be able to, we actually went on a field trip and took some sediment cores and then sampled them in the lab. Scientists better than us can basically be like, from this data, we can see that the climate 10,000 years ago was probably like this. And, there was probably this type of vegetation in this area, which is, really cool.
And that must complement the Living with Global Change paper.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I think something that they do a lot in geography in first year, second year and third year is really want you to talk about the relationships between all the bits in geography. Yeah, so it's not just like separate modules. It's very much, where are those links between all of them? Yeah.
Nice. And then with the plant and trees one, is it like a very biological module, or is it more?
I think my biology, so I did biology A-level, so that really helped me, but they did say that you don't have to do biology A-level for that. So there are people taking it that didn't do biology A-level, but I think there is definitely a lot of biology within that sort of plant cell cycles and that kind of thing. So yeah.
I'm trying to work out in what way is it relevant to geography. Is the plant, what kind of stuff do you study in the plant trees one?
Yeah, so the main thing that we do in biogeography is look at tree ring growth. So from tree ring growth, that can tell us, basically we extrapolate that, get loads of data, and we can see that, the tree grew by this many cells or by this thickness of the tree ring per year. And then we look at that and go, okay, what was the climate like at that time? What can we see in terms of precipitation, humidity, temperature, that kind of thing? So it's kind of like the other module that I do in terms of that tree ring gives us evidence about what the climate was like at the time and how that affected the growth of the tree. Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. And what specific? I know you only just starting the second half of your second year, but what kind of things have you been looking into for the decolonisation and the last module you were talking about?
Yeah, so recently what we've been doing is something that I'm really interested in, which is looking at sort of tree planting projects in the global south, and sort of how that, so like the UN has like a project called Red Plus, for example, and that basically, it's like carbon credits, if you've heard of that. So basically organisations can pay to plant trees and like offset their carbon. So kind of looking at those schemes, this is becoming a bigger thing in the future. How does that work? Is planting a tree really solving the issue, or is it kind of just putting it off and sort of greenwashing and that kind of thing? So that's sort of a bit of that module. And then last term we looked as well at sort of what we define as development, and can development aid work, and how do we view other countries that are seen as developing, and is that an outdated term? All these sorts of things. Yeah.
Wow, that's my mind's blown. Geography sounds as broad as natural sciences. Like,
it's so broad. Yeah.
I think you could do a podcast on each of those modules. Wow, it's really cool. And in geography, do students write a dissertation?
Yeah, so for geography you have to write a dissertation. I know some other degrees you have sort of a choice between exams or dissertation, but we have to do a dissertation. So I'm in second year, so this is sort of just the starting stage, sort of the planning, thinking stage of my dissertation.
And what's yours on?
Yeah, so I'm hoping to do mine sort of researching now. Kind of what I was saying earlier about sort of the planting schemes and the development aid kind of thing. So I want to look at kind of, I guess the overall sphere would be called like feminist political ecology. So that's kind of basically, it's development aid looking at how we can sort of integrate climate change mitigation and sort of gender equality and promoting women's equality and that kind of thing. So there's quite I guess you've got to go a little bit niche, but also then I want to look at broader power relations between NGOs and the people that they seek to sort of develop, and how that sort of moral obligations of development aid and that kind of thing.
Wow, that sounds so cool. That's really, and it's, I think at least for a lot of students in schools, they won't realise that that's something that you could do through geography.
Yeah, exactly. Like you come to university and with any degree, but yeah, with my experience, you just get your eyes open to a whole different bit of the world that you never would have even thought about.
Yeah, because that sounds like a very politics kind of like thesis, but I guess it's through like a geography lens.
Absolutely, yeah, and you can bring in lots of different aspects, whether that's sort of the biogeography tree planting side, the politicsy side, international relations, all that kind of thing. Yeah, it's all little bits that make up the geography.
Nice, that's really. So this is a bit of a curveball question, but do you think people who are let's say engaging with topics that could fall under human geography, if they haven't studied geography, do they not are they blindsided to the geography lens of topics? Do you see what I mean?
I don't think so, because I think everyone comes in to geography with a different background, and I think that geography is quite good at giving that broad range of things. So I came in from like a sciencey sort of A-level background,
nice, yeah.
Whereas a lot of people on my course came in from a humanities side of things. So I think that kind of blending of different ideas, it all kind of gets put into a big hot pot of ideas.
But I mean more for people who aren't studying geography, but they're talking about the same topics.
Okay, yeah, I guess there will be some sort of lens that you look through differently, that, the degree does make you sort of, I guess, aware of specific things that we study quite a lot. But I think that it's always good to have those conversations with people outside my degree. Like I talk a lot with my friends, over lunch or dinner and that kind of thing, about topics that we both study in different ways. Nice. And it's quite interesting to see the different ways. I was having a conversation with a friend the other day about economics, and we do a little bit of that in geography, more kind of the policy side of economics. And he comes in from an actual economics degree side of things. So it was quite cool to be like, oh, actually I have very different ideas about this topic, and that's because of the way that I've studied it. Yeah.
Nice. So do you think whether it's as a student or careers that geography students go on to do, is it like a very collaborative field?
Yeah, I think geography, they definitely tell us to, within supervisions, obviously, but also outside, talk about, oh, I did my essay in that way and you did it in a different way. It's quite broad. There's not necessarily one right answer with those essays. So having that discussion is really good for that teamworky type of thing. Yeah. Nice,
that's really cool. And going to move on to the teaching for the course, how are geography students taught? Is it lectures or?
Yeah, so pretty standard for Cambridge. We do lectures, we have supervisions, and then we have some sort of we have field work as well,
Nice.
some practical sessions. We have some sort of coding classes as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which always surprises people. We do actually a fair amount of coding in geography.
Really?
Yeah,
Whoa.
yeah. I mean, it's not something to be scared of because like they do start you from complete scratch.
Okay.
Like I'm terrible at coding, but you get through it. So yeah, practicals, and we also have like workshopy type things as well.
Okay.
So last year we had like a panel of people that came in and sort of gave a workshop. They gave talks, that kind of thing. So there's quite a few different styles of learning. Yeah.
Oh, you really get your money's worth.
Yeah, you'd like to hope so. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, but it sounds like geography students will graduating with like a whole how of skills.
Yeah, I assume. I hope so. We'll see next year when I graduate. Yeah.
Nice. And how have the geography supervisions been like?
Yeah, I really like supervisions. I think they're, coming in first year, you're a bit nervous. You're in a room with maybe 3 other people and then the supervisor, or 2 other people and the supervisor. And you obviously have to present your own ideas and, say what your essay was like and debate the subject with your peers. So it can be a bit scary at first, but you kind of ease into it, and then it develops your confidence, and you've really got to know what you're talking about. So that really tests you. And I think that supervisions, because geography we don't have just like one supervisor. We can get like anyone in the department basically who supervises. So that's really good in terms of, you getting a different supervisor each time. So each supervision looks a little bit different, which is quite nice in terms of, some supervisions might be a bit more put you on the spot and ask you questions, whereas some is a bit more debatey and you get to ask them questions if you haven't understood some of the topics.
That's interesting. So say like in a given term, how many different supervisors would you might have?
So for all the supervisions in the term, I would have a different supervisor for every supervision.
Wow.
Yeah, so one supervisor for each supervision I do that term.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the same ones might come up as in like ones I had last year. But yeah, they don't tend to come up again, which I quite like actually, yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, yeah, you have loads of different teachers and they're all experts in their field.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't know how many other courses are like that, but at least from the podcasts I've done so far, I think most courses are fairly consistent.
Yeah, they have the same supervisors, and maybe like the module they have is the same supervisors each time. Whereas for us, like even within a module, for one of them I've got 2 different supervisors, or might even have 3 different supervisors per module, which is quite good because, like you said, they're all experts in different areas. So then you have a supervision on their kind of area maybe. So yeah, it's a little bit of difference each time.
That's really cool. I mean, that in itself also shows how broad geography is if there has to be a different expert on. Yeah,
and it makes you adapt as well. It's sort of, you go into it sort of not necessarily knowing what exactly you're going to be talking about, or, well, more sort of what it's going to look like, the supervision. So it keeps you on your toes and really builds those skills of just going into somewhere new and being able to talk about that subject. Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess when I had supervisions, you'd get used. You kind of knew what to expect.
Yeah.
But if it's a different person each time, you kind of have to
be on it. Yeah, you've got to know what you're talking about for sure. Yeah.
You don't know how they're going to be like. That's interesting. That sounds really cool though. You get a lot out of the supervisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well with supervisions, you've got to go into it wanting to get the most out of it. And I think geography is quite good at, really keep going like, but why, sort of really stretches and challenges you in terms of thinking, you get to an end of a good supervision, you go, oh wow, I didn't know anything about that topic, but now I do.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So, I mean, you were mentioning a bit before that, well actually before we go on to that, could you expand a bit more about what kind of coding you do in geography, and is it in the first year or?
Yeah, so you do coding starting in first year, and then second year, and I think third year as well. Unsure yet. But with the first year, you basically get sort of coding classes that take you through the very beginning. This is how to code. And then you do a project, a coursework project, which includes some coding that you have to do.
Okay.
And then this year, again for the compulsory module, you have to do a bit of coding as well. But all last term we had like a coding lecture and then a coding class every week. So it's quite rigorous, and by the end you do know what you're doing. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And in what ways, like I guess like whether it's as a student or in the like career sector, can coding be relevant to like geography? See what I mean?
Yeah, I think coding is definitely becoming more of an employable skill. So before this I never even would have thought like, oh, I want to code. So I think I'm quite grateful to the fact that I could now maybe put that on my CV that I can code a bit, which is quite good. I think the way the world is going, with like AI and coding and all this types of stuff, I think it will be a good skill to have in the future, and not necessarily something that I would have gone away and done myself. So it's quite good. Yeah.
Nice. That's really cool. And before you were mentioning that there's a bit of a science maths element in geography, but also a humanities element. So what kind of science maths elements are there in geography?
Yeah, so I think, again, especially in second year, it depends what modules you do. Obviously, in first year, everyone's coming into it with a different background. So they do take you, as if you've never done sciences at A level, that kind of thing. I think that the maths is very doable. I don't think that I came into this thinking, the maths is quite difficult. But I guess that obviously does depend on what maths background you've had. But I think that everyone sort of helps each other out as well in geography. It's quite nice to see. There's a few modules that people found particularly hard in first year, and then the people that were more sciencey or mathsy helped out the people that were more humanities, and then vice versa. So I think that it shouldn't be something you're worried about. Oh, I'm not going to be able to do the maths or the science aspects, because they don't expect you to have done a sciencey based degree, A levels to get in here. Yeah.
Nice. So this might sound like a dumb question, but is geography a good degree for someone who wants to harness both their essay writing but also their like mathsy problem solving skills?
Yeah, I think the essay writing, the degree at Cambridge is very essay based. I'd say 90% of the supervision work that you do is essays for geography. Yeah, so it is quite essay based. And I came in from quite a science background, so that was a bit of a challenge for me to sort of get back to my essay writing skills. So I think that there's a little bit of that. I mean, there's problem solving within essays, right? But there's a little bit of that sciencey math stuff, but I think it is mainly essay writing, yeah.
Nice, that's really cool. And lastly, I wanted to talk about what kind of careers can geography graduates go on to do after Cambridge?
Yeah, a good question. I think that geography, because we've been talking about how it's so broad, there is a bit for everyone, and there's something that you could say from your CV, I've done this aspect of it. So it's very broad. There's lots of different things you could go into. It's also quite employable in terms of transferable skills for sort of corporate jobs and that kind of thing. A lot of geography students go into that, a lot of graduates. But equally, there's a lot of different things you can do. I'm really hoping that, there will be a job for me after graduation. I'm sure there will be. But it's, I know a lot of people want to go into climate change policy or that kind of thing. Conservation, all that type of stuff is related to geography, and I think that a geography degree at Cambridge would be a very good background, very employable background for a lot of employers. Yeah,
it sounds like geography overlaps a lot with like kind of any policy role.
Yeah, I think, like I said, that there's a lot of overlap. You do a lot of different bits of each subject. So I'll be talking to my friends and saying, oh, today my lecture was about this, and they'll go, no way, we studied that in my degree. Why are you doing that? So there's, we definitely dabble in lots of different bits. So I think that's a really good, thing to say to employers, that I've done all these different aspects, and you're quite flexible in what you can do.
Yeah, because you might have someone who's done the sciencey stuff, but they might not be so confident in their writing skills, whereas
Yeah.
you can see how a geography student will be able to be quite comfortable with both sides, which is, I think is really cool. And before we were recording, you were talking a bit about what kind of things you might want to go into after geography. Could you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, sure. So I'm still not entirely sure, still just sort of shopping around for ideas and thinking about the future. But I'd really like to go into sort of development policy, development aid, looking at sort of gender equality projects, or even something like humanitarian aid and that kind of thing. So that's where I'm looking, but who knows?
Nice, yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool. Yeah, I think 'cause a lot of my friends are graduates working in different sectors, and I think a lot of people feel like they're imposters in their roles, like if they're in the civil service, and feel like they have to upskill a lot with with their new jobs. But I think if you're a geography student, given everything that you've said, you'd have a lot of background knowledge on things that are very relevant to what's happening right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of focus on, like you said, what is happening right now. We look at the recent COP that just happened. Like we literally study that in our degree, and we do like a mock COP that's coming up soon. So it's very, very relevant to current issues and current sort of geopolitics, what's going on in the world.
Yeah, that sounds phenomenal, because I think a lot of people would, when they're going into a new job, they would have to kind of try their best to train themselves up in these kind of new current events, but geography students will be hot on that.
Yeah, hopefully.
Nice. Well, thanks, Lucy. It was such an interesting
Thank you.
podcast. Thanks for giving your time, and I'm sure this would be really helpful for prospective students trying to work out what degrees they want to what they want to study, and I think this really shows the range of what students can do if they study geography.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you.
And thanks for the listeners for watching, whether that's on YouTube or podcasting platform. We'll see you guys next time. Nice.
Cool.
How was that?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah.